Darrell, it's absolutely brilliant to have you on this episode of Leadership Bites. Welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here, Guy, and I'm excited about this opportunity.
Well, I am too, because I've as is the power of the world that we live in, I see somebody from a distance and I send a little message and I wait for that no reply, no, or let's talk. And so here we are. So I know who you are. I've done a little introduction on the audio podcast, but for the video cast, Darrell, just who are you and what do you do? And if I did know you, what would I know you for? It'd be great just to hear that before we get into the rest of it.
Yes. Again, I'm Darrell Gordan. I run a residential treatment facility for the last 20 years, and I'm really changing the lives of young men and women that have been abused, neglected, or abandoned, right? And they reside right on our respective campus, and a team of about 200 folks work with them to get them back and reunite them back into their respective families, or to a group home, or to some other location that is befitting for them so that they can be successful.
And that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you. So I'm going to go a little bit further in that. Then I'm going to go back in your history and then bring us back to sort of the present day. But for the layman, the person that kind of understands what you've said, but maybe not fully.
Gotcha.
Who are your clientele? Who are the people that's the person that I would be working with, or my organization would be working with?
Yes. The clients are young men and young women that are sent to us by the judicial system, traditionally sometimes by the Department of Corrections, sometimes from the Department of Family and Children, sometimes from a probation department, sometimes the Department of Education. And they are struggling with, conduct disorder issues, autisms, sexual maladaptive issues, independent living skills. There's a array of significant issues that our clients kind of deal with. And we are responsible for at least providing some sort of treatment modality to help settle their acuity issue, because they come with high acuity issues. So it's up to us to kind of triage for about 6 to 9 months. We do some unbelievable work. Our team does, from clinicians to our case managers, to our direct care staff, to our nursing staff, and they all provide some sort of support. Now it's interesting to note, Guy, there are kids that come that have significant suicidal ideations, right? And they are committed to trying to figure out how they can accomplish that respective goal. And it's our team's responsibility to help them get to a place where they don't see that as a viable option anymore. And that's the movement that we make on our respective campus throughout the state of Indiana.
I can see you're well practiced in saying that, but I have to say, hearing it is a little bit humbling. So yes. I just want to kind of sit with that for a moment, because it's an easy thing maybe for you to say, but it's a big thing that you're doing, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, the amount of risk and vulnerability, right, and anxiety that our staff and everyone else goes through in the midst of COVID, you still have to provide a way to keep your staff safe and the kids safe, while also helping them keep themselves safe. I think it's one of the most difficult jobs in our country, but one of the most gratifying opportunities to actually say we're not building widgets, we're building human beings for the next generation. And that's what life is really all about, right? All of us tapping into how do we build that next generation that are less fortunate than us, so that they can be on the right roads for success, just like you and I and the rest of the individuals in our lives.
And how long have you been in this space where you say, this is my full time, this is what I do, this is how I define myself, I guess?
Yes. You know what? I've been in this space, interesting enough, for about 20 years. And I recall 20 years ago, Guy, 20 years ago, when I arrived, it was just a God's calling. And when I walked on campus, I saw the opportunity. When it's like a needle in a haystack, you see that, God, this place has so much potential. And the kids were all over the place, and it was an orphanage many years ago, and it transitioned into treatment facility. And I thought, is this an opportunity for me to lead and serve as their CEO? And I had to deal with that. And interesting enough, it came down to me and another gentleman, and I was about 35 at the time, and the other gentleman was about 51. And at the end, the board was split, and they went with the other gentleman. And I thought, hey, God, maybe this is right. I'll go back to the NCAA where I loved my job and I loved what I was doing. And 6 months later, I get the call again saying, hey, would you be interested? Wait a minute, I just thought you hired someone. And it didn't work out. And I remember getting there and I said, there's a few things I think I want to do, and then I'll move on to the next opportunity. And 20 years later, right, it grabbed me so strongly that, we've renovated the entire campus with new buildings, new facilities, new administration buildings, new dorms for our children so that we can provide, top of the line care for them that are deserving of it. And it's been an ongoing mission for me in the work that I've been doing.
So Darrell, one of the things, and anybody that listens to the podcast will know, I'm a massive believer in the path that we've traveled is often sometimes the building blocks to the way we are now, but also they add weight to the things that somebody has to say because of the path that they've been on. So it would be great just to get a sense of that, Guy, this is in essence how I got here. I'd love to hear that story.
Yes. Well, I think that's even more interesting because I had 5 brothers and sisters, and I'm from New Jersey, Hillside, New Jersey, and it's a community right near Newark, New Jersey, and New York, and I had a brother that was an aspiring brother that was a professional boxer, and I remember, and we weren't affluent, we struggled in all aspects, and I just remember watching my older brother. I was the second youngest, and I watched him, and I watched him train and get up at 5 a.m, and I watched him do things that a 13, 14, 15-year-old would never do, right? But he was so committed to this movement of being a Golden Gloves champion and became pro in boxing. I just got to watch that trajectory. And, and I used to call him Flash Gordan. And I thought, I think I want to do this. I think I want to be better than him. And living in that environment, there were gang infected. I was involved in gangs. My grades were bad. I had challenges all the way around, and I had an environment that I lived in was all challenging. And there's no reason why I should be sitting here today, nor talking to you, nor having the successes that I've had. But I think it's just my will to succeed. And I remember the University of Notre Dame coming to our school, and I had a great year, my sophomore year in football, and colleges from all over the country started coming in. And for some reason, Notre Dame came in and they left. And I'm like, Coach, well, I heard Notre Dame was here. He said, well, they were, but they went to the guidance department and they looked at your grades and talked about your character. And they said, we don't think he's the guy that we want at our institution. He doesn't represent the values and the moral and the ethics that we betray here. And after I heard that, I truly transformed my life to really do something that I think very few people do, and that is not settle in being who I was, but changing to be better. And at the end of my senior year, I was an All-American football player, and I was an academic overachiever in the top 20% of my class, and Notre Dame came back and offered me a scholarship and did that. I had the opportunity to play for Notre Dame and won a national championship, got a graduate degree there as well as an undergraduate degree. And it was, went to the White House, and, all of that was a result of me not giving up and having that time, right, with people that sometimes say we can't get it done, right? And then, thereafter I injured myself in the Hula Bowl with some of the greats, Deion Sanders, Troy Aikman, and Andre Rison, and we were all in Hawaii, and I injured my knee. So going through the pros became another obstacle. And I just went right to work and worked for a company, and then I went and got a law degree and worked for the NCAA and did some work there. And then, and I still wasn't satisfied. I felt like I wasn't being fulfilled, right? And it's interesting, everything I did from the day I started, my mom used to always take me to church, Guy, and I just didn't understand. All my brothers, I'm the only one that always went. And then I found myself at Notre Dame. And not because I knew I was the first to ever go to college. So we didn't pick and choose institutions. I just thought, hey, it'd be a great institution to go to. And they had this Basilica Church, and they had the, cathedrals and all this great things, a grotto to pray in. And I got caught up into that. And it's interesting, after that, working for a little bit and then finding Wernle, this faith-based organization, a Lutheran agency. And for me to be here for 20 years, I don't think it's by chance that the road that God had me travel. And, many people say, hey, Darrell, you were on Wall Street for a while. You could have made $1 billion. You have, 3 degrees. You went to Harvard. You did all this other stuff. Why there? Right? And it's why not? Because we're responsible for giving back. And that's the very reason I'm doing what I'm doing, because I feel like it's our responsibility. And I enjoy it. And I don't feel like in the 20 years I've been working here that I ever went to work. And I think when you can get to that place in your life, you've arrived. So as a result of that, I recently, like 2 years ago, just finished a book on change. And I work throughout the country and helping people to change. And because I have some significant experience in changing organizations to the nonprofit that we became and changing our athletic team to winning national championships as a leader for that organization, and changing my spiritual life, I think I have this key component I call flashpoints that are integral in that process. And it's been a jewel for me to navigate through everything that I've navigated through to help me achieve success. And I've just been trying to give it to the world, helping them to make the transformation in their families and their financial lives and their spiritual lives and their health, as well as their academic and career. So I've really tried to focus on those respective areas of success for them.
So the book, Change Does Not Occur in a Flash.
Yes.
Genius.
Yes.
I can see what you've done there. Is that for the individual? Is it for the corporation? Is it who's it for?
Great question, Guy. It's for all of them. I try not to be everything for all people, right? And I don't think that's a good model to have. But I can say, I've had to change individually, and I share stories about my individual change, right? Again, I should not be talking to you today. Our psychologist, when he met me and he read about my background, he said, Darrell, it is almost impossible, unfathomable. It's a miracle that you are here today, especially in the capacity in which you live today. With all of the accomplishments you've made, most people would have been incarcerated, dead, or on some sort of drugs or alcohol. And for me, there was something in me that caused me to change in every portion of my career and my life that helped me continue to move progressively forward. So the answer to your question, this book is really about, helping people do the same so that they don't sit in the same place, having a mediocre organization, mediocre relationship, mediocre finances. Why can't you be millionaires if you want to be, right? And mediocre health. I'll give you the tools, and I give people the tools, and it's simple to make that transformation. But you gotta want to make it. And I try to motivate people to get there if I can. And I think that's what this has been for me. My experience at Wernle has really been to give back to those young people in the last 20 years. And I think I have the secret, right, to making that transformation. So
as an organization, I would reach out to you to have you, would it be talk? Would it be to work with them? Because obviously, time is, precious. So is
Yes.
your focus on actually go, I do that keynote intervention, or I run master classes or workshops, or what is it that you do outside of Wernle?
Yes, outside of Wernle, I really focus on, there's several target markets that I try to, again, play key to. But because of my unique experience, the target market's a little broader. So I go into high schools, I go into colleges and institutions, and I talk to, especially during orientation, because some of my stories are about my first semester at Notre Dame when I was given a pink slip and I wasn't going to be there. And the dean says, hey, I just want you to know, if you duplicate that performance that you had first semester, you're going to be home. And I'm like, home? And they said, yes, home. And I just want you to know, we pride ourselves on graduating 98% of our student athletes here, 98%. So I hate for you to fall in the 2 percentile, which you are in the direction of doing, right? I have no problem in sharing and being vulnerable, right, with you all, to say that we all don't succeed all the time. But when we don't, what are we doing to make the transformation so that we can continue to doing the great work? I could have just said, like most freshmen, 65% of the freshman class going into college, 50% of them don't make it to their sophomore year. That's huge, right? They get there, they enjoy themselves, and they're out. So there's a market, right? Especially for mom and dad that are paying the bill the first semester and then he's gone, right? It's hey, Darrell, can you help them help themselves, because they don't know what they're about to embark upon. And even in high school, right? That I wasn't going in the right direction. And until Notre Dame walked in and told me that I wasn't good enough, was when I really stepped my game up academically and athletically, to be better. But something had to motivate me. And when I did, I remember going to my mom and dad and says, this place is going to be a safe haven for me. Like, I need a place where I can study and I'm not being corrupted all the time. And I went to the gangs in which I used to be, and I said, listen, I got to get out. And they're like, we don't know if we're going to let you out. I said, I got to get out, right? And I remember they said, well, you better succeed in what you're about to do. And there was just a lot of, and then I went to my teachers and I said, listen, this is very important to me, going to Notre Dame, and no one has ever in my family has gone to Notre Dame, nor anyone at my high school has gone to Notre Dame. And I would love to be the first, but I need you all to hold me accountable, to the academic rigors of the school. And just because I may be a great football player does not mean I should be given grades. And I think they looked at that and they evaluated that and they said, well, this guy really wants to be held accountable at 15, 16 years old, which was abnormal. And that was the transformation that began in my life. And I say that to say, that's one of my audiences, but because I spent 20 years in running a nonprofit and multi-million-dollar nonprofit, I think I understand that model really well. And I understand how to develop it, grow it, and expand it, which is what we've done here at Wernle. And so I also can help organizations, right, and their teams, sales teams, help them to move in a progressive way to make significant change so that they can be self-sustaining. That's the objective at the end. How do you can be self-sustaining? And the final piece is I also have a target audience that's with corporations and with associations, but I also have diversity and equity and inclusion specialty, right? I've been trained in that, and I've been doing that for many years. So being in the space we're in now, there's a great need, right, for someone to help organizations understand the value. And if I can, Guy, I want to give you a quick piece. That I was given a speech, and I recall one of the Fortune 500 company coming to me and says, Darrell, would you come and be on our board, right? And we're going to pay you this much. But at the time I was in law school and I couldn't. And I said, but they're trying to find an African-American, but they're also trying to find a lawyer. So I was a perfect fit for them. So I said, I know another African-American attorney that you should look at. And I recommended him to the Fortune 500 company. He got on board. He was right there in the boardroom, and there must be 20 Caucasian men. That's it, on this Fortune 500 board. It's back in the 80s. And I said, well, how did the meeting go? He said, Darrell, you wouldn't believe it. I said, well, tell me about it. He said, well, they were producing soap and bar soap, but they were coming out with the squeeze bottle soap. And this was going to be the new product of the future. And they were excited about it because they were the first. And they were asked for a vote to present the new squeeze bottle soap into America. And I said, wow. I said, okay, well, what's wrong with that? So he said, well, they asked for a motion for approval, not a motion. There's a second. There's a second. And the motion also included, he said, guys, the motion also included that we would rid ourselves of bar soap, right? And he said, any questions on the motion? And so he stood up. This is my first day. I stand up and he said, well, so what seems to be your problem? I mean, you're new and you're the first day. He said, in our culture, just like maybe in England or wherever, we use soap and rags. And we've always used that. And we will continue to use that as African Americans. And he said, he looked over to his finance director of the organization, the board chair did. He said, so what's our revenue as it relates to bar soap? And she said, it's about 100 million. He said, well, what percentage of those people are minority? She said, they have about 40% of the total revenue. He need not say any more or anything else. It went silent. They all knew what was about to happen on this vote. And they had no even knowledge, right, of it, because they don't have that cultural experience. And they tabled the vote for next meeting. We come back next meeting. He says, guess what happened next? I said, what happened? He said, we have a young lady on the board. We have a Hispanic on the board. We have another African-American on the board. It is so diverse, you wouldn't believe it, because they don't remember how much they may have lost over the years by not providing diversity. So my point here is, we sometimes don't know the value of diversity or equity inclusion until we bring them to the table. And that's just something I teach, right? And I try to help organizations to understand that there is so much value, but if you're not taking advantage of the diversity opportunities, it could really curtail your financial progress and growth. Not just including the interaction with diverse population, but there are some of the challenges and opportunities that come with sort of the presentations that I give.
You have a very strong relationship with the truth.
Yes. You must, right? You must, in the industry that we're in the people that I serve, I can't sugarcoat the truth. They need to know exactly where they are, where they're going, and how they're going to get there.
But you've also had that with yourself. But from hearing you talk at a young age, you, at some point when you were given some truths yourself,
yes,
made consciously, unconsciously a decision to face into the truth.
Yes.
That seems quite clear, I think, to me.
Yes. And sometimes some people say to my detriment. But I think success in life and great relationships in life come with vulnerability. But so many of us, though, so many of us are afraid to be vulnerable. Well, I can't be vulnerable because they may use it against me. I can't be vulnerable with my wife because they may, or my friends, because I really don't know. But what if you're comfortable with yourself enough, though, that you could just be as vulnerable as you can be and not care how people use it?
You can't hurt me because I offer you that vulnerability.
Thank you. I give it to you.
Yeah.
Right. I give it to you so that you can do whatever you like with it. But Guy, I think if our country would change, and I say change, if our country would change to a point of being vulnerable, it's like dating. You know, when you're dating when you're older, it's hard. It takes about 6 months to a year to really get to know her. It's the same with our clients that we're trying to transform, right? And to get through to them in counseling, they don't share until about 6 months. By that time, they feel comfortable enough to say, you're not going to leave me, you're not going to run away from me, and you're not going to abuse the information I'm going to give you. Right. So there is, I think, the key concept of the value of vulnerability. If I can be vulnerable with you, then you're going to at least be true to me. If we can have an unbelievable relationship, I can save myself 6 months, right? We can get right to it. And that's where I think success comes. And that's how success is built. And that's how success will continue to happen in our country.
And I'm super alert to the fact, and I get this sometimes with people, that, you know, with a hot beverage and a sandwich, I could go on with you for probably another 2 or 3 days. So I'm being careful about opening up a topic and disappear into it, and you go.
You're more than welcome to
now,
open
Tuesday
up.
of the following week, I now have to go. So, you know, I think what I've come to understand is working with individuals and senior teams. And when I was younger, all about the tools and the methodology and validating myself through process. And, you know, I know how to do A, B, C, and D and all that kind of stuff. And as I have now hit the heady height of 51 years old and can now use this word, you know, experience to a degree, I've come to, I talk about trust, accountability, bravery, and connection. I have to be trusted. You have to trust me. I have to trust you. You have to want to be trusted.
That's right.
Accountability. There's ownership, but there's then, it's okay to fail as long as I understand that you were trying to be accountable, even if there was failure. Bravery, I talk about this idea of facing into and putting on your big pants. This idea that there are just times when there is no answer other than you got to buckle up, buttercup, and you know you got to move forward. And there's more to all of these topics, but the big one that really resonates with me, with you, is I talk about connection, and I don't just mean eye contact, etc. I talk about contribution outside of your own need, and I think that's something that when I work with teams, and I think I'm hearing it with you as well. There's, you know, people are very often very transactional. I need something, and if you need something, we'll work to get that done. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think there's an and rather than an instead of, which is, what are you doing outside of that personal need to enable the other person on the other side of the table?
Yes.
And I think I'm hearing that in you, which is you've got to a place in life where what you're really trying to do is to say, and I can imagine the only people that could work with you are people that are willing to give of themselves.
That's right. That's
you know, yes, you have to protect yourself and look after yourself, but whilst that's being done, the people on the other side, especially in your context, have to sense that you, and they may not have trusted it because they may never have experienced it. But we've got to be there for, truly, in leadership terms, we'd say servant leadership.
Yes.
We've got to be there for others, and that is a vulnerability of ego, and that is a willingness to absorb what might be being given and not to fight it and react to it. And there's a maturity with that. And I think if I'm hearing you correctly, that's what I'm hearing.
Unequivocally, I think you're nailing it, right? It's that vulnerability to, and that servant leadership. It's interesting. I in my last year at Notre Dame, I recall Lou Holtz was our coach at the time, and he was in his second year, and you know, we didn't do very well. And I recall him saying to me, I had a fifth year, and he says, "Flash, I don't think I want you to come back to the University of Notre Dame." Well, I'm like, well, hey, wait a minute. I was planning on coming back in the graduate degree, and you know, he said, well, listen, I got the administration on my butt. I got the student body on my butt. You know, we went, 600 this year, and you know, they're used to winning national championships, and I got to get there, and I got to bring my kids in, and they need to be playing and starting, and I can't wait any longer. You are not part of my population of people. And I remember, because this is what most of us would say and do. And I remember saying to him, and again, I'm at 18 at the time, and he said, so I'm going to ask you not to apply for the 5th year. Just, I know you started last year and the year before, and this is abnormal, but I'm going to ask you because I've got to really get ready for the next year. And I said, wait a minute, coach, that's not fair. I said, you can't just kick me out of an institution because you're ready to play others and you're trying to get to a national championship. And he said, well, listen, I got to go out of town, do some recruiting, but I'm gonna come back in two weeks. When I get back, I'll let you know what I really want to do, if I'm going to keep you or if I'm going to send you back. And I remember he said, well, you can be dismissed. And I remember walking out the door, and I'm walking to my dorm, and I was thinking, like, I'm about to go home, right? And I've already talked to the graduate school and going to be enrolling and get a degree and all that good stuff, and play another year and hopefully try to help in winning a national championship. And I remember getting there in my room, and I said what most Americans say: heck with him. If he don't want me here, I ain't going to be here. And I'm just going to tell him when he gets back, I'm done anyway. I don't need to beg you, right? And it got to the 13th day and something came over me, Guy, and it said, Darrell, be humble, right? Be humble. And I went to coaches and I got some things squared away. So when he got back, he called me into his office. So I walked in and I said, hey, coach. He said, how you doing, Flash? I said, I'm doing outstanding. He said, well, listen, I have some bad news. I wanted to let you know, and before he get it out, I said, well, wait, coach, before you share anything with me, I just want you to know this. Now, I'm 18 years of age at the time. I said, I spoke to the head trainer, and I asked him if he'd be willing to work with me one-on-one every day for 5 days a week during the summer in the off season. And he agreed, and I'd be bigger, better, and stronger than I've ever been. I said, also, coach, while you were gone, I also went to my position coach. And I said, I want to watch film with you on a daily basis, 5 days a week, 2 hours a day, regarding my prior film to see what I can improve upon, and then look at our future opponents so I can properly prepare for them. And he looked at me, he's like, are you okay? No one ever asked that, right? And coach agreed to do that. And I think coach was a little surprised. And then I said, and in practice, coach, I agree. And I promise to you, every day in practice, I'll give you 120%. 120% on, and that may mean in practice, some people will get hurt. But I need to show them the culture in which we're going to have, and if we're going to win a national championship, this is how we practice every day. I'll give you that. And if I don't, you kick me off the team. And he started thinking about that. And then he came back and he said, Flash, I'm going to give you one chance. If I find one problem with you or you providing any cancer to any of the players, you're out. And I'm thinking to myself, can he actually kick me out in the middle of the year? I was saying to myself, right, Guy? And I said, I'm in. Okay, let's make it happen. And I began to work. And it's interesting, Guy, that year, I was the strongest guy on the team at the end of the summer, bench pressing 430 pounds. I watched more film. I had my techniques down to a science. In practice, people always felt that, God, he's so overzealous. No one knew the story between me and coach, though. They just knew every day I brought it as hard as I could. And as a result of all that, I led the team to a national championship. And I got this graduate degree. And I was able to go to the White House, right? And all of these things that came with me not just saying, okay, you don't want me here, I'm out. Because that's what we do so often in our lives, as opposed to fight for what we think could be better for us. And I think he was really looking for me to step up if I was going to step up. If I wasn't, right? And if not, then I should leave. And most of our kids left. I was probably one of the very few that stayed. So I share that story again to say and to share with you the process of change. And as you talk about being brave and those things that you teach, I try to teach these components that, you know, of the flashpoints, which is facing up to it, right? You first got to admit to yourself that you're ready. Once you're ready, the light bulb goes off and you say, I'm ready to lose weight. I'm ready to be spiritually driven. I'm ready to get my finances, or I'm ready to have a better relationship with somebody, or I'm ready to get better grades, or I'm just ready to grow in my career, right? You finally say, I'm ready. Then once that's checked off with the F, facing up to change, the L is learning your capacity. Now, you got to first understand if you even have the capacity to do it, right? Some of us, listen, I want to run in the Olympics. Well, listen, you've fallen over your feet now. You're probably never going to run in Olympics in track and field, right? Well, you probably don't have the capacity. But if you do, I can check that box, and you want to be great in whatever area that is, then the A comes into play. And that's the action plan. That's when you bring some of the brightest minds together with you and you work on this action plan, right? And I spend time in the workshops after keynotes to really help them dig deep into the action plans, assuming they want to make change and they have the capacity to. After that's done, the S really is the support system. And so often, this is where I think we fail. We get the plan together, the action plan, and what do? We tell no one. I was in the gym today, it's New Year, it's packed. I go at 5 o'clock in the morning. And I said, how many people know that you're working out? No, just me. I'm trying to lose 20 pounds. You told anybody? No. So when you disappear on me next month, no one's gonna know, right? Because you never told anybody. No one's holding you accountable. But if you go tell mom, dad, your sister, your brother, your wife, your best friend, at least we could ask you every day and hold you accountable to those expectations, which is why half of us never meet the goal that we set. But once that support system's in place, I think, and you're ready to go, I think that last piece is holding on to it. It's like, how do I stay there? I just lost 20 pounds. Next year, I can't come back and gain 40, right? How do I hold on to the success that I'm currently in? How do I win next year another national championship? Right? How do I make sure we made money this year? How do I make sure next year we make twice as much money? And it wasn't just a flash in the pan, right? No pun intended. But if you get what I'm saying, Guy, it's a process that is so necessary in our society and where we are with respect to COVID and all the challenges we're having financially in our organizations, our relationships, and the claustrophobic and anxiety that people are dealing with. We got to change. And if not, we're going to find ourselves in a very peculiar situation. So you're exactly right.
So my last question for you is the future for you. What are you heading into? Is it more of the same? Is it actually, no, I've got a big plan, but I can't tell you about it? Is if I speak to you in a few years, what have you been doing in the next few years when I'm
I know clearly, my next direction. And that is, as God has told me, is to tour the world and tell them about this process of change and help them to change. And if that's the military, if that's national championships teams, if that's colleges, if that's governmental structures, if that's nonprofits, right? If it's high schools, that I will assure myself that I will be the guru in that respective area of change. And I will help you, whoever that may be, to help you move in that particular direction. Again, I spent my life doing it. And, so it's nothing more than what I really want to do because I think it's required. I would do it for free, because I believe in it that much. I believe if I can get to as many people as I can, and, that's millions of people, and sharing the book with them. And I'd like to actually complete another book on the process of change, but more from organizational perspective. And then look at maybe another one from individual perspective to focus really on those respective areas. But don't be surprised when I'm coming to England and I'm in your Coliseum or
I'll be there,
or any of those pieces, and I call your name out because we first have to think it in order to believe it. Right?
I'll carry you back, Darrell.
I don't know about that. I'll carry yours. The
I know my
servant
place in this
leadership.
relationship, Darrell. I'm the bag carrier.
We can fight over that. That's what servant leadership is. We'll fight over that.
Well, listen, I want to keep going. You've been an absolute privilege to have on. I'm going to press the stop button, but just stay on for a few seconds just to make sure
Yes.
it's doing what it should be. But just on a personal note, thank you so much for giving me your time. It's been absolutely invaluable. It's been a privilege.
Well, Guy, you are doing some unbelievable things in an unbelievable market, for unbelievable people. And I think, we need more of you, right? To help get the word out about how we can help people do better and how we can help our society and our world do better. And you are the pinnacle of that. And for that, I am grateful for you to even consider me to be on your show. And again, I hope that you continue to grow and do great things in transforming the world like you're doing today.
Well, it's very gracious. Thank you, sir. And
Thank you.
I'm going to press that stop button.
Amen. Amen. Amen.